All right, let's kick things off with a couple of simple questions about things you probably see, well, every single day. Think about it. Why are most of us right-handed? Like 90% of us across every culture on Earth. It's not like we all got together and voted on it. No, this is a global bias that started completely by accident millions of years ago when our ancestors were just, trying not to get eaten. And hey, another one for you. Why, after all this time, do our glasses still slip down our noses? You'd think we'd have figured that out by now, right? Well, it's because some of our most common inventions are actually based on ideas that were kind of failures from the start. They just worked barely enough to stick around. See, what connects these things is that our world runs on these invisible blueprints. These are ancient, default settings that shape everything. Our bodies, our tools, even how we think about power. They're the quiet rules we all live by, most of the time without even noticing. Today, though, we're going to start seeing them everywhere. Okay, so let's dive right in. And we're going to start with the first tools any of us ever had, our own two hands. So how did this whole right-handed thing happen? It's a fascinating story of how a tiny, tiny preference can just snowball over thousands of years. Imagine you're an early human trying to make a stone tool. This is risky business, right? One bad swing and you could lose a finger. So when you find a motion that works, you stick with it. You repeat it, building up that muscle memory in one hand. And then what happens? Your friends see you being successful and not, bleeding. So they copy you. It's just safer than trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's it. A totally random choice made for a little bit of efficiency, slowly, generation by generation, becomes the biological default for our entire species. Now, this idea of an invisible blueprint, it doesn't just stop with our bodies. It's literally built into the world around us, carved into the stone of the buildings we live and work in. I mean, take the Louvre in Paris. It started its life as this grim medieval fortress designed to keep people out. Then it transforms into a lavish royal palace all about controlling who gets in. And then, boom, another shift. It becomes a public museum, taking all that royal art and using it to tell a brand new story about the French nation. The physical walls pretty much stayed the same, but the invisible rules of the space, they changed completely. This really proves that power isn't just about walls and doors. It's about the social games a space makes you play. And there's no better example than the Roman baths. You might think, oh, a public bath. But really, it was the most powerful information network in the entire city. Yeah, everybody was naked, but trust me, they were not equal. Your body, your scars, who you were seen talking to in the steam, it was all a performance. You could literally make or break your reputation by the time you got to the cold pool. It was an absolute social stage. Okay, so we've seen powerful blueprints and accidental ones. But sometimes these systems aren't efficient or brilliant at all. They're not doing anything grand. They're just really, really stubborn. Let's talk about medieval toothpaste. This is a perfect example of just committing to a terrible idea. Seriously. This stuff wasn't made to clean your teeth. It was made to basically attack them. We're talking a painful paste of crushed bone, ash, and salt. It delivered almost no results, and oh yeah, it literally scraped the enamel right off your teeth. Ouch. So the big question is, why? Why would anyone keep using it? Well, because the only alternative was not brushing at all. And that just seemed worse, right? So instead of throwing out the whole terrible blueprint, people just kept tweaking it for hundreds of years. Eventually, they added mint flavor, which is kind of brilliant, because it made all that painful scraping feel fresh. It felt like progress. And it's the exact same story with the first eyeglasses. Just picture this. They were heavy, they didn't have any arms to go over your ears, you just had to balance them on your nose. And you'd better hope you didn't need to sneeze or, turn your head suddenly. They were so uncomfortable, so unreliable, but they solved just enough of the I can't see problem that nobody felt they could just toss them. So again, why stick with it? The answer is one of the most powerful invisible forces there is, inertia. It's just easier to keep going. Once a habit becomes automatic, we just stop asking if it's the best way to do things. We just keep patching and improving the original flawed design instead of starting over. Okay, so this all brings us to a material that didn't just tweak how we see, it completely changed it. And it also comes with a pretty stark reminder of the very real human cost of getting trapped in these powerful, invisible systems. I'm talking about glass. The story of glass is incredible. It shows how one single technology can completely rewire our reality. It started as this super rare sacred thing, basically fake gemstones for kings. Then the Romans turned it into a utility for windows. But the real game changer was the Renaissance. Suddenly, glass becomes the tool of science. With lenses, we could see the impossibly small and the impossibly far away, and what we saw challenged everything. Glass didn't just help us see better, it turned vision itself into hard evidence. But here's the catch. When you gain the power to create and see in totally new ways, there's always a risk. The risk of being trapped and controlled by the very systems you built. And this tension, this danger, is captured perfectly in two very different stories. One is a classic horror story, and the other is chillingly real. So, Mary Shelley, who was haunted by some incredible personal loss, she understood this terror on a deep level. The terror of making something you can't control. Her book, Frankenstein, isn't really about the monster. It's about Dr. Frankenstein, the creator, who builds this thing and then just abandons it. He's the one who fails the very system he brought into the world. And then you have ancient Rome, where this fear became terrifyingly real. A Vestal virgin named Cornelia was buried alive. Why? Not because there was any real proof she was guilty of anything, but because the act of punishing her made an anxious empire feel like order was restored. Think about that. She was a person, erased just to make a system feel better about itself. The ritual of her death mattered more to Rome than the reality of her life. So when you look around, these blueprints can feel totally permanent, like they're just the way things are. But that leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? What happens when we dare to draw new ones? I mean, from the hand you used to write to the screen you're looking at right now, our lives are just completely shaped by these invisible defaults. The first step, the most important one, is just to see them, to notice them. Because it's only when you can actually see the blueprint that you get to decide if it's one you want to keep following.